He who has learned to know the imperishable nature of his own true being by trusting in destiny becomes reticent. True reticence is the biblical melatonia, change in a way of thinking, also called repentance. Sort of the space of we're anxious, but we've got to change the way we're looking at things. The undying force of courage, which is the core of our being, loses consciousness of itself in surrender to the senses and external communication. Through changing its way, however, it becomes inwardly self-aware. That silent space. Reticence, therefore, is a fortifying of the forces. It sheaths the spiritual in us, which is neither communicable in the images of the sensory world and its speech, nor audible to the outward listening ear. Silence is the protection which keeps the spiritual as an inviolable secret of the soul. Reticence is worthy to be the bearer of the secret. It does not disappoint the trust placed in it by the spiritual world and by human beings, since it lifts this trust into the soul domain guarded by the change of ways of our desirous nature, right? Our desire to like wrestle that space to the ground rather than taking a breath, letting it sit. Reticence is the force by which the soul grasps and experiences itself, belonging not to the world of the senses, but to that of the spirit. Thus, it becomes meditative power. A meditation on keeping is silent, or keeping silent is. So this, if you're writing, taking notes, this might be something to write down. I am a thought, which is thought by the hierarchies of the cosmos. So such a good book. The Virtues, the Seasons of the Soul. And it's a beautiful binding as well. I'm in love with this book. So I want you to prepare, or as you're thinking of this space, this next space with Candlemas, think of your earthly tasks. You're a busy gnome. You're taking care of your family. You're industrious like the bee goddess, and you're protective of your space. So as you call to mind these tasks, stand for a moment in gratitude, but also as a light, a beacon. Your light transcends your earthly tasks. We get so hung up in our earthly tasks every day, and I get it. Like as mothers, we get on autopilot, right? You know, we're doing the dishes, we get our rhythm going and we know exactly what we're doing. Dishes, laundry, feed, dishes, laundry, change a diaper. And it calls us to really sort of step back and get present in those actions because it's so easy to just be on autopilot.
Focus for a moment on your breathing. Don't manipulate it at all. Just bring awareness to it. Breathing in awakens our senses. It is much more than the breath that keeps our bodies alive. It keeps the whole of us alive and allows us to experience so many things. Rest for a moment on how your breath affects your senses. Now, let's take a deep breath in and feel it bring awareness to your senses. Breathe in and breathe out.
Your children. And I'm super excited tonight. We have Miss Tiffany, who is our You're With Me teacher over at Seasons of Seven. So after our children's story, Miss Tiffany is going to give us some eurythmy for moms, give us some space just for us. So just keep that in mind. And she says you only need enough room to stand up. And what did you say, Tiffany? Like lift your arms all the way?
You need about
Okay.
arm's width in front and behind you. And if there is space to walk a little triangle, that's even better. But this is an exercise that can be done any time of the year, but at spring especially, because the earth has been sleeping and kind of holding its treasures inside. And now that spring is coming to bloom, Mother Earth is giving over her treasures and giving us her gifts and showing us her love to anything that lives on the earth. And so what we're going to do is an exercise. It's a soul exercise called Love A. And it's really love with the letter E, but we use the German pronunciation of E, which is A. So Love A is what it's called. And let's see. So the earth gives her gifts and gives her love to us. And in doing that, we're kind of physically, we're awakened a little bit. And now we can go about and we can give our love and we can like move, out of our house more instead of being inside where it's so cold. And I know where some of us live, it is still cold, but you can still see those little signs of spring coming to life. Babies, little baby goats and baby chicks being born, all those things. So I'm going to explain it to you what it means because I feel like we need to understand what it means in order for it to have a benefit for us. So it is a combination of a soul gesture and a letter gesture, and we put it together to create this feeling. So the soul gesture of love towards others is done like this. We start by standing straight and tall, as if you're a beam of light. And if you think about like a flashlight or something, that beam comes straight out. It's nice and straight and tall. So we're nice and straight and tall. We feel that beam going into the heavens, to the stars, past the Earth's atmosphere, and we feel it going beyond our feet into the earth where matter is created deep, deep within the earth. But the color of our beam is not yellow. The color of our beam is white. White is an all-knowing, all-powerful, giving color. And it's not prideful all-knowing. It's a very humble all-knowing. It knows who it is in this white. Now, with our arms, palms facing upward, we gather this love about to our heart height. And now we feel as if there's this rose red veil that's been draped across our arms and it's hanging down. And rose red, because bright fire red is too aggressive. It's aggressive and forceful of oneself. But rose red is more of it still is aggressive, but it's like a caring aggressive. It's like if I had $1,000 and I'm like, here, take it. I want you to have it. And they're like, no, 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 really, I want you to have it. It's aggressive, but it's very caring. So here we're standing. We felt white. Now we feel rose red across our arms, hanging down from our arms, this veil across our heads. And then right across our shoulders, we're going to feel this ethereal blue, this sky blue. And it hangs down our chest and our belly and across our back. And this blue, and this is why I asked this question, Melissa, this blue represents, and if you notice the way that you're standing in a cross representing Jesus. And this blue that's draped across our shoulders is the sorrows that he carries, the sorrows of the world, the sorrows of mankind. And as a mother, we carry that for our children. Okay, rest your arms for a minute because I know you've been holding them. That blue is carrying others' burdens. As mothers, we carry others' burdens. And when we open ourselves up to our family, extended family, and our community, it gets to be a lot of carrying of others. I mean, we're told to truly show love, you need to be happy and joyful with those who have joy, right? And carry others' burdens and be sorrowful with those that have need of sorrow. That's how we show our love. So again, we go into love. We hold our arms up. We felt white. Now we feel rose red, and we feel the blue across us, that ethereal blue that will eventually help us to rise above. But we can only give so much, right? So we give and we give and we give. And here comes the gesture of E, which is pronounced A. We cross our hands. Doesn't matter which arm goes over which. This is A. It can be this way or this way. And we really push our arms into each other, almost to the point where like, oh, that kind of hurts, because you want to be aware of these. This is the gesture of boundaries. Okay, I can't do this anymore. I have to show myself some love. So it's love towards others and then love towards ourselves. Because if you're like me, I can give and give and give and give and give and give all day long and not stop to give to myself. And I can continue doing that. But guess what? I lose myself. And we don't want to do that. So let's try this one more time. Standing in white. I lied. It's not going to be one more time. We are standing in white. Our bright beam going up into the sky and down into the earth. All giving, all knowing, all powerful white. And then with this white, we open up our arms into rose red, searching for those who need love around us, right at our heart. And then in your personal practice, you're going to hold this as long as you feel you want to. Giving that love, thinking of somebody that you know needs your love, maybe sending those good vibes, as they call it. We're sending our etheric energy to them. And then when we can't give anymore, we close in A.
We are talking today about gratitude, contentment, and a growth mindset. So, if this is something that's new to you, or maybe it's something you do already, I hope that you'll find this time to just be, a good space of just getting comfortable and getting in that spot of really feeling the flow and the gratitude come to you. And, often when we talk about this subject, people get funny and put off because they think that abundance just means financial, and financial abundance is great, but actually abundance is about all things in life. And so we're actually going to talk a little bit about that today and talk about, how we can cultivate that with our families. So speaking of families, I hope you have children around. We're going to do our children's story first, and then we have a parent talk, and then we will do a short meditation. So, and this will be the meditation will be in with the replay as well. If you are a member of the candle membership, and in that, then you can just listen to the meditation by itself if you'd like. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. So, also, you are welcome to ask questions in the chat as we go along, and I will grab them at the end. All right, let's get started. So, we're going to start with our kiddos. I hope your kids are around. Going to tell this story. All right. The story is called Green with Envy. And, we've been telling lots of gnome stories. So this is a little story about two gnomes. Henry was a treasury gnome in the king's counting house. He loved counting money and jewels. When he went home each night, he made sure his own money was counted and always moaned, "This isn't enough. I need more." When Henry ate, it was never enough. He often would make himself ill because he always wanted more. It never occurred to Henry that he should share. It would take away from him, and that was just not right. He needed it all. All the food, all the money, all the stuff that he could get his tiny little hands on, and everything that he could fit in his tiny little cave in the ground. Other gnomes were afraid of Henry. They were always worried that he would take things away from them for himself. All of the gnomes except one, and her name was Helen. Helen was a sweet gnome. She was giving and loving and caring. When she saw Henry coming, she didn't step out of the way. She only offered him a bit of sunshine. Sometimes she just gave him a smile, even though he returned it with a frown. And when he demanded her yummy popcorn, she gave it to him with joy. She knew she could always make more. Helen always counted her blessings. She woke up each day with a prayer on her lips and a spring in her step. She loved to count her blessings and found that when she was happy and thankful, she was always blessed with all she needed and all she wanted. Helen worked hard to spread happiness wherever she went. Other gnomes loved her, and she had many friends. She was always worried about one gnome, a greedy little gnome named Henry. She said hello and smiled at him often and shared with him each time that they met, but he was so angry all the time. One night she prayed about Henry. She asked God to help her understand him and to know what to do. When Helen woke up the next morning, she knew what her mission was and she set out to do it. She made a big batch of her best popcorn and she went looking for Henry. It wasn't long before she saw him. He was dressed in green and angry as a hornet. Henry saw Helen and her popcorn and he stopped. I want that popcorn right now, he demanded. I'll give you my popcorn, said Helen. But first, I want to talk to you. What do you want? Henry shouted. Why are you always so angry, Henry? I see you almost every day, and you never seem to be happy, questioned Helen. What is there to be happy about? I want more and more, and I can't seem to get it, said Henry. Now his anger turned into impatience. Why do you need more? Have you ever given gratitude for what you have? Asked Helen. I might live in a tiny cave, and I don't have all the riches that you do, but I am happy. You can only be happy if you are not, or how can you be so happy if you are not rich? I want to be as rich as the king. Wait, richer than the king. I want his house and his servants. How can you be happy if you are not rich? He demanded. Walk with me, Henry, and I will tell you, Helen said. The two gnomes walked, and slowly Helen opened her bag of popcorn and began to share it with Henry, who didn't realize he was sharing. Helen told him how she began each day counting all of her blessings, her home, her food, her friends, and how each time she counted her blessings, she realized how much God had given her. And she was still and was still giving her every day. She explained that when she walked in happiness and contentment, grateful for all she had, that she was always blessed with more. And that filled her heart so much that she wanted to give some of what she had to others. Then she explained that the Gnome King taught her these lessons years ago when she was a young gnome and she worked in his treasury. Henry was surprised. He didn't know that the king was like Helen. After Helen finished explaining, she asked him if she could go home with Henry and help him count his blessings. Henry was a little embarrassed. No one had ever asked to come to his home before, and he knew it was not tidy. But he agreed. Once the two arrived, Helen started by getting out her paper and pencil, and she began writing. Number 1, Helen is my friend. Number 2, I have a nice cave for a home. Number 3, I have 4 rubies, 3 diamonds that I earned working for the king. Number 4, I have a cupboard full of food. Number 5, I have a bed to sleep on. Number 6, I have clothes to wear. Helen continued to write, and after a short time, there were almost 100 things on Henry's list. She helped him tidy, and then she changed number 2. So number 2 read, Number 2, I have a nice, clean cave for a home. Henry looked at his list. He was amazed that he had so many wonderful things. Helen asked him if they could pray together. Henry said he had never prayed. He believed in God, but he was angry because he never gave him all that he wanted. This time it would be different. The two gnomes bowed in prayer, and Helen gave her prayer of thanks first, and then Henry began. Dear God, I am sorry I haven't prayed. I want to thank you for all of my blessings, and most of all for my new friend Helen. She helped me understand how selfish I was. Thank you, God, for sending her to me. When their prayer was over, Helen gave Henry a hug and a smile and walked home. She did just what God had prompted her to do, and she felt so good that she could help someone. The next week, she was walking in the garden, and she saw Henry with a smile on his face, running toward her. Helen, he shouted, I must tell you something. I went to work today after thanking God for all my blessings, and the king came to tell me how much he appreciated my work. He offered me a bigger cave and gave me this cute little ruby. I want for you to have this, Ruby. You mean so much to me. I am so thankful that you took the time to teach me what it means to have gratitude." Helen gave him a big hug and a little kiss on the cheek and took his hand in hers, and they walked through the garden together. So, Change the Way You Look at Things and the Things You Look at Change by Dr. Dyer. It's so simple and it's so hard sometimes. It's so hard. And I think, especially as mothers, depending on where our lives have been, it can be such a frustrating space when we are faced with hardship, whether it be, financial hardship, something going on in our marriage, something going on with a child, or even just crap that comes up from our lives. It really helped me to start reframing where I was. So that's just been my life, like this reframing space. I'm a choleric, raised by a melancholic, who was raised by a choleric. So if you are somebody who was raised by a melancholic or you are melancholic, it's likely that you might have some challenges with optimism. It's baked into us when we're young. All of our thoughts and attitudes are set by the time we're 9, and really probably by the time we're 6. Studies show somewhere between 6 and 9 is the sweet spot, and so I'm really always asking myself, like, what am I sending into my children? And I'm not a perfect parent, not by any stretch. Just ask some of my children. Um, but I will say that that space has always been a space that I have worked on because I find it is so important to make sure that we instill them when they're in that first 7-year cycle with values and goals and ideals that feel good, and because they're going to take that with them the rest of their life. And it also makes us step back and sort of reflect on, like what was said into us. And that's such a huge part. I always say that like kids act the same every day. It's us that change. It's us that act differently. It's us that show up differently. And so much of that is from our own past. And truly being a parent will push every button that you didn't know you had. And so, it really becomes a space of asking yourself, like, why does this trigger me? Why does this make me mad? Why am I upset about this? So let's start with us. Let's start with chatting about how we show up and where that comes from. And again, like I said, some temperaments have a harder time than others. Melancholics that were raised by unhealthy parents, they're likely going to struggle in this space unless they've done a lot of inner work. Phlegmatics that were raised by unhealthy parents, and of course, clerics and sanguines can also get stuck if they were not raised by good parents. If they were raised by narcissists, it creates more narcissism. So it's like something we have to really be careful about. But one thing that we have to remember is that we have the power to change. And I like to think about that whole glasses half empty, glasses half full trope. It's just kind of silly because I'm just not even thinking about whether or not it's full or empty. I'm thinking about whether or not it's full of, like, old flat diet soda, or if it's full of yummy chocolate milk. So that's how you can look at that glass is half empty. If the glass is half empty, that's cool, but what the hell is in the glass? If what's in the glass is amazing, then it doesn't matter how half empty it is. It doesn't matter if there's only this much in it. So that's like it's just a mindset shift. And, as adults, we can sort of take the space and look at everything as data. And I think it's so important. And I sort of talk about that when we talk about planning and our planning for peace stuff for our homeschoolers, and really just being able to separate ourselves from our from the emotional spaces, because that's when we can truly, like, look at, like, what's really going on, what's really happening, what is creating this feeling that I've got going on inside me and is keeping me from being in a happy space, and realizing that we don't have to judge it all. When I realized I didn't have to judge everything, I was like, oh, it's, it's so refreshing. It's
Here we go. Let's talk about this word. I have to tell you, for a long time, I thought it was kind of a dirty word. This idea of patience, it was really hard for me when I was a young mom. When I had a lot of little kids, and a lot of little kids for a long time. And I just really struggled with this idea of having patience. And, everywhere I turned, people were like, oh, just pray for more patience. And I got really, really tired of it because every time I prayed for more patience, I found myself like in situations where I had to be patient. Really struggled. I really struggled as a mom with young kids because this patience thing just really, like, frankly, was pissing me off. It really made me frustrated. And sort of as I look back now and I look at some situations in my life, I'm really like almost overwhelmed with gratitude by the amount of patience I grew. So as I was preparing for this, I was just sort of reflecting. And I'm going to name a few things that have happened in my life, and maybe they will line up with some things that have happened in yours, and you can see your, patience and fortitude working for you as well. So I was thinking about my divorce from my ex-husband and all of that entailed. It was so, so hard, and it was so hard in the darkest times to be patient, and I just remember being so frustrated that, I wanted a partner to run with me. I wanted somebody to listen to me, to hear me, to love me. And then my patience allowed me to have this amazing man. Like, Eric and I will have been married for 19 years this year. And it just was such a beautiful space of like truly seeing what being patient allowed me. And yes, there were definitely dark times for sure. But I remember at each step, like really getting like, oh, wait, this is what good feels like. And the more you feel that, the better it is, and the more you want more of it. I'm thinking too about my youngest two children, Sam and Soraya. I never would have had that experience of mothering them and being with them had I not had the experience of the divorce. So it all was this long path. And I'm not a proponent of divorce. I'm a proponent of, healthy marriages. And that was not my reality at the time. And so I had to learn to be patient as I walked through there. I was also thinking about the patience of building a business. You know, um, Eric and I started Waldorf Essentials, like almost 18 years ago. And I had been coaching, Waldorf coaching for families before then, and studying a lot of Steiner before then. And bit by bit by bit, we built something that's pretty amazing. And with that, we then were able to start seasons of seven in 2020 when we started that. And we're about to go into year five of our school. And then with that, we have the nonprofit now, Ariel's Light. And so all of those pieces, like, yeah, there were definitely times where I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't happening fast enough. This is so frustrating. And uh, there were definitely frustrating times. But as I stand back and I look at that space of patience and me just going one step at a time and looking at all of the skills that I learned in that process, it was really helpful. I was also thinking about my stroke that I had 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, I had a stroke and I was out of commission and I lost a lot of memory. A lot. Almost everything has come back, but I lost a lot. But in that time, it was just such an interesting time. The year before, I kept praying. I had some clients that were really like had struggling with health issues, and I was having a really hard time like relating to that space, and I just kept praying for understanding them more. And then I had a stroke, and it gave me a perspective that I didn't have otherwise. It's just like the perspective of my son with autism. Like I can relate to families with autism because I've got this in my wheelhouse. And so like sometimes as we're walking through it, that patient space just feels really frustrating. We are talking this month about forgiveness. And ooh, it's a big topic. So, I just want to start with like acknowledging that forgiveness is hard. I think that it doesn't matter how much we know we are supposed to forgive, there are always going to be situations that really, really test us and try us. And I actually think that's the point. That's part of what we're here for. We're here to sort of learn and return. And I feel like every time I'm challenged with that, it's another piece of growth for me. And it can go from, silly small things that we don't want to let go of, whether it be towards ourselves or towards someone else. And it can go towards really big things too, because I feel like it really sort of it's the whole spectrum. Um, we have so many things going on in our lives, and there are so many things that can tempt us and stress us out and make us struggle. And again, whether they be towards somebody else or towards ourselves, it is like super important that we sort of really take stock of this. And I feel like it is important as parents, as mothers specifically. We are the spiritual head of the home. And so we are the ones that are driving the boat usually. The children look to us for that place of fulfillment. And our, with our partners, if you're married, if you've got a partner, then that should be a space that you guys are leading together. But often it is us that are the ones that carry that. So that can be a big burden sometimes, especially if we are struggling to let go of things and we are struggling to forgive situations or ourselves. So I'm hoping that tonight's chat helps and sort of helps you, especially if you're struggling with something specific, helps you to think about things a little bit differently to change your perspective of that. So like I said, that forgiveness is complicated. It can be anywhere from us struggling to forgive someone who wronged us to us struggling to forgive ourselves. Um, Most often, we get stuck in that space of not wanting to forgive someone, and I guarantee you that person doesn't give a whit about whether or not you forgave them. Usually, it's us that is hanging on to things, and that really can affect us so deeply. It can affect our emotional health, our mental health, and our physical health. When we carry things, it gets stored in our organs, and when we release things, we have freedom. And so, I think about myself personally, the things that I've gone through this last year, and after my stint in the hospital last August, I was like, all right, Melissa, what do you still hold on to? Because I've been doing inner work for many, many years. And just when you think you've gotten to the core of it, something else comes back and bites you. And so you have to then examine again, what else is there? What have I missed? What am I still holding on to? And examining that it again, it offers more freedom and more lessons for this journey. And I have to say, just since August of last year, so 11 months ago, I've learned an incredible amount about myself, even more so than I have in all of my years of meditation and teaching the families that I teach. So I just want to say that we're never we're never there. When we think we're there, we're not there. So I feel like that it's a space of continual growth and continual, asking ourselves, is there something I need to let go of? Is there something that I'm struggling with? And if you're wondering, then you should look at your own health. If you're struggling with sleep, you're struggling with cortisol levels, if you're struggling with stress, if you're struggling with kidney issues, if you're struggling with liver issues, like there's so many things because so many things are really stored in our organs. So it's really important to be able to let those pieces go. I also want to say that forgiveness can affect all temperaments differently. I think that it, it it is such a beautiful walk, but also such a hard walk in a different way for each temperament. Cholerics don't like to be wrong. I can tell you that as the resident choleric. I don't like to be wrong. But you get to a point where the more study you do, the more you be able to go quickly, oh, okay, I was wrong about that. Or I'm so sorry that that happened. Will you forgive me? Or even forgiving myself for being in a spot like I was in last year. Like it took me probably a good month before I was like, okay, I don't know what you're stressing about. You need to take a deep breath and forgive yourself for putting your family through that. Forgive yourself for being in that space. And often we don't think about those things. And so, that's my experience as a choleric. I have children of all temperaments. So I know that melancholics have a really hard time with forgiveness. It's like carrying a rock in your shoe all the time that you're having a hard time letting go of. And I guarantee you, if you take that shoe off and get rid of that rock, things get a lot easier for you. Phlegmatics have a memory like a freaking elephant. So you are going to remember every single hurt, every single frustration for your lifetime. And it's a conversation that my dear husband and I have all the time. He is phlegmatic and he'll remember things. And I'm like, how can you even remember that? Like, because my sanguine brain's like it fell out like already. And so, but when we remember things and we hold on to those things, it's not about the memory. It's about the emotion that we get behind it and the struggle that we get behind it. So we want to like pay attention to that. If that's your temperament, you want to pay attention to that. Like, why is that bothering me? Why is that such a trigger for me? Why am I again in this place, even with a different person, a different situation, but again in this place where those same old feelings are coming up? So I think that's a really important piece for all temperaments, but definitely, like I said, phlegmatics tend to hold on to everything because you guys have an amazing memory, which is great if you lost the car. It's not great if you can't get over a trauma that happened 20 years ago. So, truly, like thinking about how you can make your temperament your superpower is important. Sanguines don't have a huge issue with forgiveness, but it's usually because they forget what they were mad about. And so it's really that piece. The challenge and struggle in that is if they forget what they were mad about and they didn't deal with that, then it will come back to haunt them again and again and again. So I just ask that if you are struggling with things, that you look at it under the lens of temperament and what things are triggering to you. And we did a whole series on temperament last summer, and we talked about human needs psychology and how temperament flows into that. So if you are somebody that is struggling with temperament, or it's something that you're just like, oh my gosh, there's so much information, go to those. Those are in the recorded calls from last year with Auriel's Light. And you can get, if you're not a member, you can get those in our candle membership. That's only $5 a month, and it just goes to support our ministry. So moving along here, again, how it affects, like, lack of forgiveness, whether it be of ourselves or of others, it affects every facet of our lives. Like I said, physical, emotional, mental, all of those pieces. It affects how we treat others. It affects how we allow ourselves to accept love and healing. So if you are having trouble in your life with financial abundance, which is crazy, it's crazy that your lack of forgiveness would have something to do with that. If you are having trouble with emotional abundance, like allowing people to love you, all of that stems back to some sort of forgiveness. So you want to really pay attention to that. And I love this quote by Einstein, which is kind of a smack in the face. So I'm sorry. Hopefully it doesn't hit too hard. He says, weak people seek revenge, strong people forgive, intelligent people ignore. I don't think I'm very intelligent most of the time. There are many times that I do not ignore, that I let myself get riled up, and especially in the world today the way it is, and go, what in the heck are we doing? And I have to remember all the time that most of the time am being invited to a circus that I don't have any monkeys in, that I don't have any stake in, that I should just be like, you know what? I've been to that circus. Don't need to go back to that circus. You can have that circus. And I think that that's like a really important piece for us. This month we are talking about honesty, integrity, and being impeccable. And it's such a huge topic. How do we discern truth? So it really begins with our own spiritual impulses. We have to flex our discernment muscles every day. Like, the more we flex them, the better it gets, the better we get at it. And when we have had trauma, it makes it harder for discernment. So if you're somebody who's struggled through trauma, you really, really, really want to get clear from your trauma, because trauma like monkeys with our ability to discern. Doesn't mean you can't, but it definitely messes with it a bit. I was actually listening to something else today, and I heard this guy that was lecturing say that it takes 2 years at minimum to break free from a traumatic event in your life. And it part of that is because we keep thinking about it and talking about it and bringing it up again, and somebody asks us about it, and then we have to go back and relive it. And it's because it didn't happen. It may have happened in the past, but it didn't stay in the past. It keeps being brought to our right now. So until we can clear that, we really are struggling with whether or not we have this sort of sense of reality. And like I said, that can really monkey with whether or not you can discern truthfulness. So I think these exercises that we're going to talk about that are from this book will be really helpful. So they're some of Steiner's exercises. He has many exercises. He has the 6 basic exercises, which are fantastic. These are a little bit of a spin off that. If you have this book, it's on page 129. I'm going to just read some of the pieces from there. Find my old lady glasses here. Okay, so he sort of broke them down to daily exercises, and each of them had a day of the week. But I truly think, and from all my years of studying Steiner, even if you just pick one and you work on it and work on it and work on it until you feel like you get it right, then it will be like a game changer in your life. So the first one would be these exercises. If you were doing them for the week, they would start on a Saturday, and the first one is right thinking. He says, "Beware of your thoughts. Think only meaningful thoughts. Gradually learn to separate your thoughts, to separate in your thoughts the essential from the non essential, the eternal from the transitory, the truth from mere opinion. When listening to a conversation, try to become inwardly still, renouncing all agreement and, more important, all negative judgments, criticism, or rejection. Do this in both thought and feeling." And he says this is called right thinking. So, this again, it helps on this path as we're working to flex our discernment. The Sunday exercise is right judgment. So he says, decide on even the most insignificant issues after only a full, well rounded deliberation and reflection. And I find this one so important because it's so easy today to be hurried and rush into a decision about anything, whether it is what you're having for dinner tomorrow night or, oh my gosh, I have to go pay for this giant thing. So I think it's really important that we allow ourselves, that we give ourselves that space, that we can say, no, I need to make right judgment. In order to do that, I have to take the time. One of the things that that Eric and I have done throughout our marriage, especially in parenting, because it's so hard, is if anybody asks us to make a decision after 8 p.m., our automatic answer is no. If you can't ask me in the daylight, like in the morning, then you're not going to like my answer right now. But if you can wait till tomorrow, then I'm happy to discuss it during our morning family meeting. We also try not to make any business decisions late at night. We try not to make anything that is big or weighty, especially money is involved. We try not to make it late at night. We try not to find ourselves in the office because that's sort of the double-edged sword of working from home, is that like your office is always right there. But we try to find ourselves not in the office after 8 o'clock, because every time we are, we're like, oh my gosh, here we are again. We're in the office. Is this an activity that we can do somewhere else in the house? Because if it is a space where we are being asked to make judgment, it's really hard to do it at night because we're not rested. So we really want to be in a space where we're rested. And 9 times out of 10, if you're trying to make a decision like that with another person later at night, you're probably going to argue, and then it's going to be for naught anyway. So he says our reasons for everything should be fully deliberated. Once we are convinced that the decision is correct, we should adhere to it with inward steadfastness. This is right judgment. Okay, Mondays would be right word. Only serious, meaningful speech must leave the lips of those who strive for higher development. I got to tell you, I talk a lot. Y'all know this. So this is one that I'm constantly working at to shut my hole, because I talk a lot. In fact, when I was a kid, I have a report card somewhere that says, Melissa's a great student, but she talks so much, she keeps all the other kids from getting their work done. Yeah. So I heard that one a lot in my life growing up. He says, avoid the usual sort of conversation that involves jumbled, simultaneous crosstalk. This does not mean that you should cut yourself off from interacting with others. Especially in such interactions, your speech should gradually become increasingly meaningful. Listen thoughtfully to every statement and answer. And I want to just say, too, as somebody that has ADHD, like it's really hard, but it can be done. You have to get yourself in a space where when you're conversing with somebody else, you are genuinely interested in every word that they have to say rather than thinking about what you're going to say next. And that is a challenge. That is a challenge that we can all do, but it definitely takes work. It takes work and deliberate practice.
Welcome, everybody, to our September gathering. Today, we are working on harnessing our dragons, sending them on their way, diminishing them so that they are not bothering us so much, and working through blocks and triggers. But before we do that, I am going to welcome Miss Tiffany again. She is our eurythmist at Seasons of Seven, and she is going to be working with some eurythmy inspired movement for us tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and actually spotlight her. And if you don't know Miss Tiffany, like I said, she works with us at Seasons of Seven. She's been with us before, and she is amazing for sort of helping us through this eurythmy space. So welcome, my friend. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I always love talking with me and sharing with me. So I'm very excited to be here tonight, especially since we are talking about our dragon. The exercise I have for you today is called the E-A-O meditation. And it's a little exercise. It's one of the very basic first exercises that Rudolf Steiner created in 1912. And it's really good when it comes to battling dragons because it helps. We work with 3 different vowels. We work with the E vowel, which is not the letter E. It's actually the letter I. So it's the German pronunciation of it, which is the I, E, and then the Ah, which is our A, and then the O, which obviously is our O. And so we work with the meanings behind them to bring about this feeling within us of our past, our present, and looking towards our future. And we use our angels and we use our own soul to help embrace and support us as we move through the future. So when we're talking about our dragons that we face, there's many different kinds of dragons. Some dragons come along with us from our past, and we're still trying to banish those dragons.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about some of that tonight. Yep.
And some of our dragons are present dragons. They are dragons that have suddenly appeared that aren't always there. And that's when we were talking just briefly about inner work. It's always a moving forward thing because life changes, right? And so your inner work might change and look different. But this is an exercise that I'm going to show you guys tonight that is something that you can use and it will move with you and it can evolve into something different. It is a very basic exercise, but there's nothing basic about what it can do for you, the benefits of it. So let's begin. Everybody stand up. Make sure you've got, actually, you don't need to step anywhere. We're going to be standing still. So
Okay.
have a little space to just lean a little bit.
So we don't need to go anywhere.
You don't need to go anywhere. You just got to stand.
Okay.
And to begin with, we are going to address the 3 different vowel gestures. So we're going to do them first, but they're not actually the meaning of them is part of the exercise, but the actual doing of the gesture is not part of the exercise. However, we do carry the meaning with us, and the feeling that it imprints upon us, we carry that with us and we use that. So our E is done like this. We take one hand and we face it towards the ground, and our other hand we face towards the sky. And we create this, they call it the bridge between heaven and earth. This is the E. And now you don't say it, but you think in your head, you think, E, that feeling of E pulling together tight and just stretching out, right? E. I stand balanced between heaven and earth, and for this gesture is the bridge between heaven and earth. I am the bridge between heaven and earth. E. Now, Ah, we bring our hands back to our heart and we open ourselves up. I always take a step forward because I can't help it. Ah. Now, we're not going to open our arms too wide. We're just going to continue to have them in front of us like this. It's as if a toddler is like, little kids, they see something they like and they go straight towards it. That's the feeling we're trying to produce, is this ah. being open to wonder of the earth and beauty of the earth and beauty of creation and all things around us. Ah. And we think and we feel, ah. Good. Our next gesture, we have the O. And the O, we just wrap around as if we're holding something, and we bring our fingers together. O. Now I've created this big space here, and what I'm holding within this space are things that are important to me. My family, my friends, my community. Oh, and think, oh. It's this holding space of community. That's what the O represents. So we have, again, we have E. I'm the bridge between heaven and earth. We open our hearts in awe. And then we gather in O. Hold close and protect all the things that we love, right? Our O. Good. Now we're going to hold that aside for just a minute. And I want you to stand comfortably, whether that's your feet together or not, or whether it's hip width apart. Just stand comfortably. Don't think about it too much. Just stand comfortably balanced on your feet. And I want you to imagine that you are standing in the middle of a column of light. You're in your own column of light. You are not the pillar of light, but there is a column of light that surrounds you. And it's wide enough, just wide enough to go around you. And that core of light, that column of light goes deep into the earth, deep into the core of the earth, where matter is made, where life is made. And it rises above you, way above your head, towering above your head. Just imagine that light beaming up into the stars, into the heavens, connecting to the cosmos. And that is you, and that is your column of light, your own personal column of light. Now we're going to just practice leaning a little bit. We're going to lean forward on the balls of our feet, not too far, just on the balls of our feet, just a little bit. And then lean back on our heels. So we pass the center and slowly lean back onto our heel. Now you're keeping your spine straight as you do this. Some of you are really, really good. And then we lean back forward. Just practice leaning backward onto the balls of your feet. Even go as far as your toes, but keep your foot flat on the ground, the whole foot. Then lean back on your heel and on your toes. Just go back and forth. Take your own time. Just see where your limits are. Keeping your back straight, your body aligned. You're within your column of light, just leaning forward and back. Now stand centered in the middle of your column of light. You're balanced in your column of light. And what I want to do is I want you to lean forward on the balls of your feet. This brings us the feeling of ease. You are stretching yourself. You are the bridge. You're the bridge for your family. You're the bridge for yourself between heaven and earth. The E. Feel E within you. Feel that bridge within you. Now, slowly leaning backwards towards your heels. You feel, and your foot stays flat on the ground. So don't lean too far back. You're leaning to the back of your column of light. The back of your head is touching the back of your column of light. And you lean back onto your angels. You feel supported and loved by your angels. They're aware of you. They are back there. And you're leaning into them. You're leaning into them for your help and support. And we feel awe. We are in wonder of our angels. We are in wonder of this source of light and love and life. Now leaning forward again, slowly shift to your toes. So past your balls of your feet to your toes, while keeping your foot flat. You lean a little bit farther and imagine your forehead is touching this column of light now. The front of the column of light. And we feel supported. We feel as if our angels are wrapping their hands and arms around us and are holding us and supporting us as we move forward into the world. We feel supported. Feel your soul supporting you from the inside while you think, oh. Now return back to neutral. So we kind of took a little time to do that, but let's do it a little bit quicker this time. Leaning on the balls of our feet, we feel, ah, I am in wonder of creation and wonder of my source of light, love, and life. Leaning back onto your heels, keeping your foot flat. I feel supported. I feel awe in support of my angels, in support of the creation. And then again, leaning on your toes, we feel, oh, feel yourself opening up. Feel your angels holding you. Feel your chest soften and your heart soften and open. You are open to the world. And then come back to neutral, standing as a human being on this earth. Okay, one more time. We lean forward on the toes, the balls of our toes, excuse me. The balls of our toes, we feel E. As above, so below. And looking at my present situation, at my past, E. The bridge between then and now. Then leaning back onto your heel, we think awe and wonder of our present situation. What dragons might we be facing and how are we handling that? Lean on your angels for support and let them talk to you. You're leaning back here, listening to them. Now shifting to the toes of your feet. On your toes, you think, oh, with all that I've learned of who I am, who I was and who I am, and listening to my angels, I know now what I can carry forward and do. I can go into the world, into this community, and I can slay my dragons, and I can help others along the way. Return back to neutral.
So, what we're doing this month is really just shifting a bit. Sort of as we approach All Souls Day, which is November 1st, we're sort of having this thinning of the veil. And, oftentimes people are just thinking about Halloween and, oh, we have all these things to do for Halloween. But truly, the spiritual implications of what happens during this time is really a space of sort of being close to those that we've lost and those that have moved on. And so, with that, it often brings up a lot of stuff. It brings we end up fighting with people we don't know why we're fighting with, or we're having some internal struggles ourselves. So this is a really good time to sort of do this timeline meditation that we're going to work on today, because of the shifts that can happen. But also, you can do this timeline meditation anytime. You can do this. I recommend that you do it fairly regularly when you see new blocks come up, when you go, oh, wait, that keeps coming up. Why does that keep coming up? I feel like I need to get to the root of that. So this is a good meditation anytime we are really working on getting to the root cause of things. So again, we're going to get ready here for your meditation. I want you, hopefully you have headphones on. I want you to get super comfortable. Let's just take a few deep cleansing breaths. And I want you to just settle in for the next few minutes and relax and let go of everything else. If you wander, it's normal. Just come back to my voice. There'll be plenty of things for you to be doing in this meditation. So if you wander, just come back to my voice. Now let's get in touch with your timeline. This includes life now, your future, your past, and even beyond your birth into your ancestors, and it even extends into other lifetimes. Just settle in for a moment and see this timeline float above it. When you're floating above it, you can see maybe your marriage, where your babies were born. You can see things that happened last week. See all the things that happened in your past. It helps you to connect with it when you can really see those pieces from your past. Make sure that you're seeing them through your eyes. It's not that you're seeing yourself seeing it, not that you're seeing yourself doing it. You're seeing yourself, you're putting yourself in that space of pushing that baby out, kissing that man for the first time. It's coming through your eyes. Now float down to your timeline and stand in the present, right now, in the room that we're in. On your timeline, your future is in front of you, and your past is behind you. I want you to turn around and look at the past timeline. You can see many places from your life. Now turn back and look at your future. The things that have not yet happened. For a moment, I just want you to take in how easy it is for you to access this data. Going back is an instant, and so is hopping forward. Again, in this whole process, make sure that you are seeing things through your eyes. You aren't watching you do the things. You are doing the things. Now let's float way up so the timeline looks very, very small. I want you to ask your subconscious mind to be aware and ask it for permission to release whatever it needs to release today for your healing and your greater good. While being high above your timeline, ask your subconscious mind what the root of this limiting belief or issue is. What is the root that stored the learning that no longer serves you? Remember, your subconscious will not lie to you. And it's usually the first thing that comes to mind. The unconscious mind will answer pretty quickly. Was the root before, during, or after your birth? If after your birth, what was the age? If before your birth, was it in the womb? And if so, how many months in the womb? If it was before that, was it in a past life or was it generational? If it was a past life, how many past lives ago? And if it was generational, how many generations ago? You should only have one answer as your root cause. So we're dealing with one challenge at a time. And remember that it's safe to trust what comes up. Now let's go to this place on the timeline. Float down and go to the place where you decided to adopt this as your truth. That root space. There are likely many events in your life that continue to reflect what was learned here. That's why getting to the root is the key. Float above the event and stop and see what is happening. If you are having trouble getting to the event, take a deep breath and give your subconscious permission to go where it needs to go. If you are still having trouble, pull back, float up high, look down on your timeline, and look for things that may be brighter than other things on your timeline, or guides that could be pointing the way for you. Pay attention. Are you there? Are you at the root event? Can you feel that this is the beginning of the limiting belief? As you're looking at the event, are you feeling any negative emotions surrounding it? Ask your subconscious what you need to learn here to be able to let go of this belief in this event. Are there things that you can see with your adult eyes that change the event and the truths that you held from it? What new things can you learn? Just float there and soak in this learning. Let it move through you. Decide to let go of this limiting belief. Take a moment to acknowledge this new learning and consolidate it. How is it different than what you originally thought was truth? Good job. That was hard. Now I want you to float back before this event. Let's check on the emotion from the event. Is it still there or is it gone? Hover up over your timeline for just a moment. Are the feelings gone? If not, I want you to go back and do all the steps again and ask yourself if you are blocking your unconscious mind. There's something that is being blocked. If you are still stuck in this emotion, you want to keep working on what the root is. Now let's come back to the present timeline slowly. I want you to stop at 3 different events on your way there, where if you had used the new knowledge that you have, things could have been different. Briefly observe how different it may have been with these new beliefs. And let go of any negative emotions that could be lingering. We are just letting that old belief go. Doesn't serve us anymore. Might even feel a little bit silly to be thinking about it, that you held on to it for so long. Notice how much different things can be now, how much more opportunity. All right, amazing work. Let's come back to present. I want you to take it easy tonight. I want you to rest and nourish yourself. Make sure you get plenty of water and really allow yourself to sit in these new opportunities. It might not seem like a lot at first, but like I said, I think if you journal about it afterwards, give yourself the place to have these unravelings, then you will be able to see some changes that before.
Discretion. We all know somebody like Toby, somebody who doesn't have a filter. And often when I meet people like that, I think 2 things. One, does this person have autism? And I think that because I have a child with autism. And 2, no, they don't seem like they have autism, but nobody taught them how to be kind. You don't always have to be completely blunt. And we want to really work with our children so that they can understand, sort of what this discretion piece means, so that they're not offending the world, embarrassing you, embarrassing themselves as they get older. So teaching children to have a filter is a pretty delicate matter. They learn either in teachable moments where you're paying attention, you can point it out, or they learn after they've embarrassed us and we weren't paying attention, or something slipped by us, which happened to me last week. And I was like, wait, what just happened here? Still gives you a teachable moment. They're not as good as the teachable moments that you see coming. So, just sort of thinking about that as you're walking forward. Finding ways and opportunities to sort of impart delicate situations. So we can talk about something as simple as somebody that's in a wheelchair. And I can remember when I had young kids at home, I would say, that person has a magic chair. That magic chair helps them to move around and it helps them to do the things that we do with our legs. That was a really simple explanation. And then if they knew that person, it was okay to generally ask. Generally, you're going to find that people that are, that have some sort of physical challenge, they know they have a physical challenge, and they're generally very willing to answer questions. We had an interesting situation that happened to us last year We were actually at Disney World, like getting ready to walk in the gates, and there was a man with a magic chair. And my kids are older, so they were 12 and 17 at the time, and he noticed that I was walking with a service dog. As I have a service animal, she helps me walk since my stroke, and so we're walking, and he's got his magic chair. Well, he was deaf. And the absolute joy on his face when my child knew how to speak to him in sign language was priceless, because she was able to have a conversation when so often those people get very pushed aside and people sort of ignore them because they don't know how to talk to them. So if you've been in a spot like that, really taking the time to teach your child how to interact with people, especially when people are different. And if you teach that to them from a young age, then they're not going to feel so awkward about it as they're older. I know that